What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Small Lake City podcast. As you know by now, I'm your host, Eric Nielsen. And so for this episode, this is one that we've been waiting for a little bit, ever since Kendall Rodriguez, aka the Queen of Salt Lake City, wanted to have this person on the podcast because it was the first person that she started following when she moved here to get her bearing of Salt Lake, and especially a better bearing of the food scene here. Unfortunately, Kendall was supposed to co-host on this episode, but as you can guess, based on the timing of it being March and her working for the Utah women's basketball team, she is completely swamped with all things basketball and Utah women's basketball right now. So unfortunately, we had to move on without her. But if you haven't put it together yet, our guest this week is a man by the name of Stuart Melling. Now, you might not have his name ring a bell, but you will probably have heard about his blog, Instagram account, Gastronomic SLC. He's been running it for over 15 years, covering the food scene in Salt Lake, and even spent some time as a contributor to the Salt Lake Trib for content around restaurant reviews, food reviews, etc. So someone who has a great perspective of the food scene in Utah. He's not from here. He is a transplant, and he actually comes from across the pond in England, from up north near Manchester. So fun guy, fun personality, absolutely. One thing I will say is the audio got a little corrupted, but let's hear from Stuart and hear about his story of how he became kind of the OG food influencer in Salt Lake.
I think I'm cool. I've listened to quite a few episodes of the show to get a feel for it. So,
cool. What have been some of your ones you've listened to or liked?
Tanner and Amber. There's somebody else I've forgotten now. You haven't played Kendall yet, have you?
Kendall, I have.
You have.
I think it was like, what episode was she? I think it was two or three ago.
Oh, maybe I did listen then.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I was scrolling back in the day trying to, like, which ones have I listened to?
I know. I even forget, but then it's funny because, like, I'll talk to people and I'll refer back to episodes and I'll be like, there's a lot of these now. Like, we're not just like picking back into like a couple.
How many episodes do you want?
24 releases this week.
Okay, cool.
So it's been, it's weird to be like, oh, there's like not an insignificant amount anymore. But at the same time, I mean, it's so fun just to like get to know people, get to know different perspectives of the city. Like, I didn't know anything about like the art market,
right,
or like any of the artists and how actually special a place it is. And then actually the episode this week, do you know Micah Christensen?
I don't think so.
So have you ever been inside of or driven past Anthony's Fine Arts and Antiques?
Yes.
So he is it's him, his dad, and his brother-in-law that run it, but he's kind of the one who does the most.
Right.
And like just his stories of, living in England and spending, 6 years going to university, college, getting his PhD in art, and like traveling across Europe, getting all these great experiences and bringing it here and growing. It's fast. Like he's such a high caliber person for what a lot of people are like, oh, like that cool building that I drive past when I'm going downtown after going to McDonald's, or on the way to McDonald's from being downtown. So yeah, it's just fun, like all these little communities I never knew existed, and hearing, like, just making friends in general too.
Well, I really like the way you end it. Like, who would you like to talk to? It's just a rabbit hole, right?
Exactly.
All over the place.
No, I love it. But I'm also super excited to have you, because you were actually someone who I did want to have, is like one of my initial lists, because so my cousin, he born and raised in like Roosevelt area, and then moved to Salt Lake in like his 20s, and he became ended up becoming a chef.
Okay.
And he lives up in Oregon in the Willamette Valley now. But I remember when I moved back, he's like, oh, you have to follow Gastronomic SLC. Like, that's where you find, like, that's where I look at food recommendations. So I was like, okay, like, well, this is probably back in, I remember when I moved back from Seattle, so it's got to be 2019. And then, like, and I think that was like an important part, because it was like right before pre-COVID. And then COVID came, and like a lot turned like the restaurant and food scene on its head.
Yeah.
And then now it's just kind of been like this, like green, it's like after a forest has a fire.
Sure.
And then everything kind of gets burnt, and then all of a sudden these seedlings and saplings start to rise, and you're like, oh, it's like kind of like a new era. So it's been fun to see from a distance. And then now, obviously, Kendall mentioned that you were one of the first people that she followed when she came here, and had a lot of admiration for you. And then unfortunately she can't make it because it is March, and March Madness is in full swing, so she had to do that. But hopefully we'll come get her back some other time. But been fun and I just like reached out. I was like, Stuart, I've been following you for a while. About the podcast. Like, let's do it. So
yeah, no, I was writing. I remember years and years ago. Do you know Chris Holyfield?
Yes.
He did the I Am Solid podcast.
Yes.
I think he's rebranded it to something else.
I can't remember what it is, but yeah, it's a little bit then.
Years and years, and do you come closer?
A little bit closer, if you don't mind.
Years and years and years ago, he invited me on, but just after he started. And this is when like podcasting just started. It was this new thing. And I said to my wife, hey, honey, is this like random dudes emailed me and like wants me to go to this like building? And I sent him loads of emails at the time, like, kind of like, you real? Like, what's... Because podcasting wasn't a thing.
Right, it's such a new thing.
Like, so it never really happened.
Yeah.
And then his, like, podcast blew up and, like... Yeah, no, it's, like, just such a normal thing, podcasting.
Oh, I know.
Like, when you said, like, come down to Edison House and let's chat. Oh, yeah, that's normal. But, like, 10 years ago, it was, like, some dude is trying to get in the back room. Did I say something about his restaurant? Or, like, what's the story?
Yeah, watch your back. Yeah. No, that's something I learned, and we were kind of talking about it when we walked like, into the green room, but, like, when I was first starting, like, so where am I going to record this? Because, like, I built everything so I could, essentially record anywhere as long as I have an outlet.
Sure.
But at the same time, I can't just, like, DM people randomly on Instagram and be like, hey, do you want to come over to my house and record a podcast? Because, like, I'm buying a house and there's a guest room, and some people are like, well, why do you put a podcast studio there? I'm like, because people get creeped out if you invite them over to their house to record an episode, and like that makes sense. So that plus 10 years ago, I probably would have brought a friend with me too.
Well, I remember getting my first lift. Like, open the door and being like, I'm just going to tweet my followers right now.
Yeah, if I do
you kind of like a bit sketchy, then like 5,000 people are going to find you, guy.
Yeah.
So that was okay.
Your head, not mine. But so I'm so excited to listen to kind of a little bit about how, obviously how you got here, because anybody listening can probably put A and B together and realize you're probably not born in the Salt Lake Valley. And then just being one of the people who kind of tracked all this information from the beginning and has like this longest running record of it all, and seeing how much it's changed both recently and gradually over the past time. But starting from the beginning, obviously born and raised across the pond in England, but what was that life like? Or did that set any of the foundation for where you got to today?
I guess. I had a story on the site like a few years ago called like The Food That Formed Me.
Yeah, I read that.
But like nothing like people would expect. Like if you ever read like Anthony Bourdain's first book, Kitchen Confidential, he's like, waxing lyrical and shucking oysters in like Normandy as a child, and mine's nothing like that. Like it's like, ooh, McDonald's opened at that time for the first time. Like
I did have to because I was reading it. It was swiping through and I saw like the section on McDonald's, and I was like had to like double take it back. I was like, okay. But also like going back to my cousin, there was one time where I was in college, I was dating this girl, and she hated that I like had this habit of every now and then I'd go drive by fast food McDonald's and get something and come home. And so my cousin flies out, and he used to do it more, but hasn't come in a while, where he'd come prepare like a 5-course meal for our family and some friends. And he would just, whatever he wanted to make, we would make it happen, and everyone would show up. It'd be a really good time. Right. And so I was dating her at the time, and it was funny because when I started dating her, she was vegetarian and had been vegan prior to that. And I have this picture of her just eating this lamb leg that's like raw. And it was just like, I sent it to her dad. He's like, I'm so proud. But at that time, like Jeremy was coming around, my cousin was coming around, and like, oh, how's everything? And this girl I was dating, she's like, Jeremy, what do you think about McDonald's? And it's funny because I'd actually already had this conversation with him, so I love the way that she teed it up, because he was like, well, you have to understand that there's like shit that's good and good shit. And McDonald's is good shit. Sure. And he's like, and my favorite things, like I go by maybe once a month and get a fillet of fish, and her face just dropped. Because not only did he say he too partakes, but he said like the most, in my opinion, like one of the most repulsing things on the menu.
Oh, like if you talk to chefs, they're not going home at the end of a shift, like cooking gourmet meals, right? They're going home and like eat the worst, like instant food imaginable. Like, how do I get calories in my body, like as quickly as possible?
Totally. And I think I can't remember, there might be a scene in The Bear where he goes home and he's in this like crappy apartment, reaches into his crappy fridge and grabs some like crappy little thing and just starts
eating. Like a Totino's with some Cheetos and
exactly. The creme de la creme. So you didn't have your Anthony Bourdain experience.
No, my parents, they always cooked. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid, we always baked and we made dinner and, that kind of thing. But I don't think I ever really, we didn't come from like a really wealthy background. We kind of super working class. Cool. So I don't think I even went to a restaurant until I was like in university. Okay. And like kind of spent a lot of my student loans. Oh, hey, look, restaurants. Let's try that.
Yes.
But yeah, food was always like part of growing up, like cooking and baking, but never like a gourmet thing.
Yeah. So it wasn't like your mom being like, now here's how you make the proper tart, or how this is why we did this.
No, nothing like that.
Got it.
Nothing like that at all.
Not the Anthony Bourdain, that Anthony Bourdain way.
No shucking the oysters on the coastline. No.
Too bad. And then, so just like so I can put my pin on the map. So what part of England were you raised in?
Okay, we'll start like really general and see if you can see
Perfect.
when you like zone out.
Okay.
Like to the northwest,
Yes.
Manchester.
Yes.
Outside of Manchester, there's a little town called Wigan.
Okay.
Probably you haven't heard of that.
No.
It's like if you came from like Beaver, Utah, you'd probably tell somebody I'm from Salt Lake City, right?
Exactly.
They wouldn't know that.
Oh, okay.
So, like,
Got
that
it.
kind
So
of-
super small town outside of Manchester.
Very provincial, very quaint, shall we say? Yeah.
It says, yeah, because I have been to Manchester, because that trip I was telling you about, like we took the train from London to Manchester, and my stepdad's family, there's a lot of Manx in their blood. So we took a flight from Manchester over to the Isle of Man and back, which was interesting because it's like such a unique.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was 11 years ago.
Oh wow,
Too long. I hate when time gets that.
It's like Salt Lake City. Like every 5 years, you know how people here say, "Oh, you wouldn't believe how it was 5 years ago." Manchester's exactly the same, like on steroids. It's just every time you go back, it's like, wow, that building was in here. This skyscraper was
This is all new. This is all new.
It's a really energetic, really. My wife always like kind of equates it to like San Francisco because it's very compact.
Yeah.
You can walk across it really quickly. A lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, a lot of trendy art districts, things like that. It's a very, very cool city. And Wigan's the opposite.
Wigan is the thing that counterbalances it all. Keep it grounded.
You have all these little satellite towns around, the big city.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's kind of the same. I guess like anywhere, there's always these little. I think my brain actually goes like Boston, where what you realize about Massachusetts is it's really just like Boston and like the surrounding area, because you just kind of keep going east or west, and it's just like little town after little town until like by the time you reach the end of Massachusetts, like oh cool, like you're out of like Boston.
Right.
So you mentioned you went to university. Where did you go to university?
It doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it was called UMIST, which is the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology.
Okay, so you came into the city for school.
Yeah, and then it became just like Manchester University.
Got it.
Which I think is the biggest in Europe.
That makes
So
sense.
it's a really big student town.
Oh, cool.
It's like 100,000 students.
Was it a pretty fun time? I mean, you that many people together.
Yeah.
In summary,
Half the student loan goes on food and the other half goes on beer. I mean, that's
the college
student life.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Just like, I mean, pub culture in England is always like one of my favorite sort of like, I mean, drinking experiences. And I can't imagine like pairing that with college and.
Well, I think my first year, so I studied computer science.
Okay.
And my first year, I think my class had 300 students. And by year 2, it was down to like 90. So there's like a huge, like 2/3 have gone out of the first year. Whether they can't cope with it, or the money's run out, or the pubs killed them. 2/3 have gone after year 1.
Interesting. It's like an episode of Survivor, but like British and educational.
Pretty much.
So you studied computer science, and then, so at what point did you? I mean, how long were you in England for? Or at what part of the timeline did you migrate across the pond over to the U.S. side of things?
Yeah, so I started a business.
Okay.
I started many businesses after leaving university.
Got it.
As a way to not get a real job.
Yeah.
But essentially, my last year of university, so my eventual business partner, who I formed my business with, he went on kind of the more programming track, and I went on the more business development track. And as part of that, they were teaching you, when you leave university with your degree, you're going to go to like an IBM, and this is how you replace people in the workforce. And I'm thinking of my background, coming from this working class town. Yeah. Like they're teaching me how to fire like my mom and dad. Like this is how you explain how computers, your job's gone. Yeah. I don't like that. So I said to my flatmate who became a business partner, do you want to start a business? He's like, what? I don't know. Started throwing things to the wall, and eventually one stuck, and that's 26 years later. But that's so I lost my track.
It was okay. What kind of business was it? Just
we're a web hosting company. So we don't make websites, we just provide the infrastructure and technology.
Got it.
But it was kind of that was my point. Around the time I formed the business, I was just chatting online, over the forums before we had TikTok and Instagram and all that. And just talking about music. And I started talking to a lady about music from the north of England. And that turned into emails, and emails became too long. And when the emails became too long, so phone calls, and the phone calls brought me to an airplane ticket, and they brought me to Utah, and then that's kind of how I met my wife, and I moved here, and so that was kind of the point of the story of left university, started the business, internet stuff, met my wife, and that was 20. Why? What did I meet her? I was like 98.
Yeah.
So that's what 26, 27 years ago.
Interesting. So I mean, I imagine coming from a place like Manchester, very like vibrant. I mean, big city, but like also like compact and communal, and coming all the way over to Salt Lake City, Utah, which is a very unique place culturally in a lot of things. I mean, what were your first impressions? Did you think you made the worst mistake possible?
The one thing that sticks in my mind was coming out of the airport and seeing all the billboards, all like the neon signs, like down the road. I'm like, wow, this is really American. Yeah. And still to this day, every so often, like even though I'm more American now than I am English, every so often I still pinch myself, and I'm still like, oh wow, this is like America. This is cool. It's like the movies. So I know like a lot of Utahns, a lot of Salt Lakers kind of down on Salt Lake. Yeah. For it being like the provincial backwater, small. But for me, it's the opposite. Like, hey, this is America. This is cool, guys.
What do you guys think? This is awesome. I do love the billboard thing because I lived in, I think like outside of Seattle, you can. But when I was in Seattle, you couldn't. And I got so sensitized to it. And then I came back. I was like, oh, I feel like the freeway's yelling at me. And yeah, it's interesting because like in England, they don't have billboards like that.
No, not at all. And I think Salt Lake is particular.
Oh, like, Salt Lake
more so in like America, right?
Oh yeah, like we are very pro. If we can put a sign in front of you, we will do that.
Been dazzled coming to the airport, and the rest of it was just like culture shock for like 3 weeks.
Oh, I imagine
because we met talking about music. Like I'm like a grunge era kid, so we flew up to Seattle, your time, saw the Kurt Cobain statue, Jimi Hendrix, the whole Seattle thing, and explored Salt Lake, ate a bunch of food, and then they kick you out of the country. After like 90 days, like,
you're done.
See you again in a minute. And we did that kind of back and forth thing for
that's gotta be brutal.
A few years. Like, they don't say how long you have to stay out of the country for.
They just say
I just can only stay for 90 days. So we kind of did that for a bit. 9/11's in there somewhere. And I didn't come back for like a whole year.
Oh, jeez.
Because, I mean, that everything just stopped.
Yeah.
Like, you're not traveling. You ain't getting on a plane. No, nothing. So that stopped everything for a year. And then eventually, we just kind of said, should we get married? I mean, it wasn't
like, this is a lot cheaper than all these flights back and forth. Can we just make this a little bit more official?
It probably could have been a more romantic proposal.
Oh, yeah? It sounds like there's a story there.
No. I mean, so should we get married?
Should we do this? Like, well, I mean, I feel like I was talking to someone the other day about this, but like huge, grandiose surprise, like engagements, I couldn't imagine doing that. But some people still do because
hiding the ring in the lobster roll and hoping they don't like.
Yeah, or like, and then also having like no like conversation beforehand, like pure surprise, like that never happens. Like it always starts with at least a conversation of like, so yes, no, are you thinking? And then I mean, going from there. So
so we talked for like I say, all those emails and phone calls, and then the visits. Yeah, and it was always a kind of when are we going to do this? And eventually it was like we should do this because this is getting insane. With the visa stuff.
And you said you were messaging her when she was in Northern... So is she British as well?
No, she's from Salt Lake. She's from Taylorsville.
Got it. And so, okay. Let me understand. So you were messaging... Was she in England when you started messaging?
No, she was over here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought you said that messages to someone in Northern England and then... Okay. I'm back. Okay. Got it. Cool.
So I've had a lot of caffeine as well today. So.
Oh, that's... when I'm here... That's like the hard thing is they have like... I mean, bottomless coffee. Coffee. Wow. And so I'll just like kind of just like refill it, and then by like the time it hits 2, I'm like, this is too many. We need to not. But thankfully, my body's adjusted successfully. So you get here, you've had this experience in web hosting, you have this degree in computer science. I mean, now that you've kind of been like, okay, I'm here, we're going to do this. I mean, what was your plan at that point? Is it still kind of working in computer science and doing that, or? And if I guess kind of like doing my timeline, there's got to be a little bit of period between you moving here and then being like, hey, I think I want to document all of this.
Yeah, so that first visit when I came here, my wife took me to Star of India, and those guys are still here. Mm-hmm. They used to be right downtown. Yeah. On the corner of... Next to where that Galson's guns were the...
Yeah, like second.
Place. Yeah, right there. And then they moved again. But they're still here. Anyway, she took me there because coming from England, Indian cuisine is such a huge thing. Mm-hmm. I went to that restaurant, that kind of piqued my interest, went to another restaurant, and then started picking up the City Weekly and reading at the time, I think it was Ted Scheffler, who was the critic there. Reading like Ted's reviews, and then it was Vanessa Chang in the Tribune at the time. Just started reading everybody's reviews and then thinking, hey, I've got some thoughts on this too.
Yeah.
And I also can make a website pretty quick and easy here. So these two things come together here. And I don't mind speaking my mind. So that came together really quickly, and said to my wife, like, you okay if I do this? Yeah, sure. I mean, at the time, there was no Instagram, no TikTok, no social media.
No.
I think even no iPhone.
Oh, no.
I think we saw like flip phones or the cool Matrix thing. I don't know how old you are.
I remember seeing Matrix in theaters. That's, But
yeah, it came together pretty quick, and I started writing reviews, local restaurants, just getting my brain on paper or on the screen, as it were, and kind of snowballed from there, really. I mean, all the original reviews are still online. I think Gastronomic will be 18 years.
Dang.
This year? Yeah, it doesn't feel like 18 years.
It's a legal adult.
It really is. Well, maybe not Utah. In England it is.
In England it is. Yeah, you can't go to the pub yet.
But all the original ones are still there, and you look at them and you kind of cringe. You look through your fingers at them, and it's kind of, oh, did I say that? Wow, okay. But it's all there. As a matter of fact.
I mean, imagine it's pretty... Because, I mean, it's the same for, like, any sort of... I mean, writing, art, creativity, whatever it is, like, you always go back to your older stuff. You're like,
yeah,
I've learned so much.
Pretty much. It's kind of frightening, right? That kind of, like, exponential... that curve of how fast you learn, and then
you criticize all so much at the same time. So because I didn't notice that when I was like looking at your website. I mean, it still do, but like you can tell it's not like a Squarespace template or anything like that. Like this is written in either JavaScript or I can't think of the other coding language right now. But but it makes sense now having talked to you that you built the website.
Sure, and much like yourself, lots of different hats. In my real life, with the web hosting, I'm kind of an SEO guy.
Got it.
It's a lot of SEO components and performance and speed and, all that good stuff that goes on behind the scenes that nobody thinks, oh, he just goes out and eats food all day.
No.
It's like 2%.
Yeah. He just goes and sits at a restaurant and writes. You're like, well, no, thank you, but there's a lot more to it.
I wish it was there.
Oh, I know.
I get complaints all the time about grammar errors. And people are like, hey, you should fire your editor. I'm like, hey, it's just me.
I'll talk to him about
with
it.
A lot of coffee and 23 hours a day. And
it's always funny when, because I still do everything by myself. And it's funny, like someone will DM me and be like, you guys should, or like, when you guys have a second, like just talking and I'm like, me, myself, and I, we would love to. But it's like, it's so fun because, I mean, again, like if you don't do it, nobody will. It's it's things that you enjoy, like you said. I mean, it brings together your opinions. You like to write. You have this website that you now have as your own. It feels like it's kind of like the perfect thing to lead up to all of that, especially in this world before where, I mean, it's not like anybody at the time, because to your point, I mean, there's no smartphones really. Yeah, because no smartphones. This is before any sort of like real blogging had taken off. And then also...
well, I remember at the time there was probably like 24 local blogs.
Oh, interesting.
And I still know a few people on Instagram from that era. Yeah. And I was kind of like, nudge them, hey, you should come and write for me. Remember when you used to have that blog 12 years? I don't have time. Yeah. Don't do it. It's surprising. I mean, I'm sure you found it right with the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
That pushing yourself constantly to make the content. Because there's weeks where I'm sure you're like, I just don't. Am I any good at this?
Yeah. Is this? No one's listening. No one's saying this. Why do I want to go spend 2 hours trying to create content or do this?
And you just got to constantly push to that wall. And I think a lot of people just, give up somewhere along the line.
Yeah. It's like the cliche picture that comes to my mind is that like, it's like that old like motivational picture where the guy's like digging for diamonds in the mine and one of them quits like right before he gets the diamonds and the other one does it. Like, it's funny too because like you never know. Like you'll post something and be like, oh well. I think this one's going to do really well. I thought my writing was really like succinct, and I mean, just all of the things that you think, and then you put it out there like, wait, like what do you mean? Like this is supposed to be like the one that does well, or like, and then you'll throw out one, you're like, whatever.
Oh man, I will write I'll write this really in depth. There's this chef and he's pouring his soul into it, and I've got to respect this guy's talent, so I'm doing my very best on his flowery prose, on this, spending hours perfecting this article, which I think, is like Nobel winning, and like 3 people will read it.
Yeah.
And then I'll write that like, oh, in a night it's going to come to 21st. 10 million people will be like, this stuff.
Finally, the stuff we want.
Yeah. No. So I think about like the vegetables in the meal and like the dessert. People really like that dessert bit, but you gotta have both, right?
Yeah. So you gotta give it all credit. I mean, so you start this idea, and you're like, hey, I'm going to start this blog. There's these new people doing this. we'll see. I mean, it's something that's fun. It's probably not motivating as far as like, some sort of, call it side hobby or passion project, but really probably just out of having food, having opinions, wanting to write it, seeing how the internet's already taking off and like this platform. I mean, it's got to be funny now to look back and be like, I was right.
Yeah, I mean, like it's my whole life now, right? The business is web hosting, and Gastronomics now turned into a business. It's an LLC. We have advertisers and like paid writers. It's its own little mini business now. Yeah. But yeah, I think that was all. Like, I don't want to say I told you so. That sounds like
sure, but you still had to build it brick by brick and do all of the work and make it as. The thing it is today, because to your point, some people are like, oh, do you just go sit in a restaurant and write something and then go do whatever you want? No, there's a lot more to it than that. And so to acknowledge that there was so much more to it and to see where it is today, it's not like you just went viral from a TikTok you posted, but it was like all of these. It'd be interesting to see how many words you've written over the years or how many articles together. I'd be a bit
frightened to actually know that. But at the end of the day, I just like eating. Yeah. And I just like, hey, Eric, I found this really cool ramen spot. You really need to go there. Yeah. Because I want that ramen spot to survive. So if I can convince 10 people to go there, then they'll tell 10 more people. So it's really kind of just a greedy, selfish hobby.
I need to make sure my restaurants I like stay in business, and I will make sure that I get people to do that. Because that's always one thing that bugs me is like a restaurant will go out of business. Yeah. And you'll tell someone like, oh my gosh, but I loved so-and-so. Like, when was the last time you went to so-and-so? Like 5 years ago. Like, well, no wonder it went out of business. Like, how mad can you actually be about it? And I think that's an important one to have, because like if you like a restaurant, then like it's like almost a way to selfishly keep your like hobbies going. Like one thing I do is like I buy and sell sneakers, so I can help pay to have sneakers. And so it's kind of
one of those sneaker guys with the. Do you have like in the new home? You're going to have a big closet with all the. There's the smile says all.
There's a couple. There's a lot of shoes to store, and I'm already tinkering away with it.
No, I have to look at these sneakers.
Oh, these are nothing. Everything's in a box right now, so I kind of have to just do normal ones.
Do you keep them in there? See, I don't know a lot about sneakers.
No worries.
Do you like take them out every so often, have a nice look, wrap them up?
There's some that I'll like keep and like not wear because I like them. Like for example, there's this designer that kind of like led, I guess, like the sneaker era named Virgil Abloh, and he did this last collab before he died of cancer. And so like I bought those, and those are never getting open, never getting sold. Okay. But then I'm someone who likes to wear my shoes because I like to wear my shoes. So but I also have like this is point like there's like so the truth is somewhere in the middle. Like there's some ones I'm like
there's a top shelf that just gets looked at and never touched.
Exactly. And I don't like to have those many because again, at the end of the day, it's shoes. Like you can try to justify all of these prices and market values and blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, it's shoes.
Right. We're all just passing time, right, with stuff we enjoy.
Exactly.
Food,
shoes, cars, whatever it may be, as long as it doesn't hurt me, cost me money, or in fact impacts my ability to do what I want to do, then have at it. Life's short. If it makes you happy, why would we complain?
Well said.
And so you start the blog, and I'm curious, like, were there any like milestones along the way that you're like, oh wow, this is like happening, or any restaurants that you're like, this is going to be an amazing spot, or that you're super excited about that ended up being kind of like one of those ubiquitous Salt Lake restaurants? Just kind of curious of like some of those moments that you look back on.
I mean, there's been a lot of restaurant moments. I mean, there's some where I've called like, hey, this is going to be a thing, and it wasn't, or this was, and then it was. But like milestones, I remember when I got invited to my first like restaurant invite.
Tell me about that.
Like everybody knows, right, that restaurants invite people, especially with like Instagram and TikTok. There's a lot of influence events.
Totally.
And like back in the day, it wasn't like that. It was more to invite like 7 people, like this guy from this restaurant.
Because there just wasn't influencers wasn't even a thing.
And yeah, so I remember going to my first one. Me and my wife went there, and we like kind of hidden in the corner and pointing across the room. Oh, I think that's such a body from the Salt Lake magazine. No, I think that's him from the Tribune. I think, and very, very intimidating, very scary. But then you're like, oh, wow, these people think I'm one of them.
I was going to say, they're probably in the corner being like, and that's Stuart. He's got the gastronomic blog. Like, of course he's here.
It's like, oh, he's one of those bloggers. Get him over. Well, they used to call, some publications used to call bloggers like citizen journalism, which always felt a little demeaning.
Yeah, it's like citizens journalism.
I have a journalism degree, so that doesn't count. What?
Yeah.
I mean, that's completely changed now.
Oh, totally.
So, but yeah.
There's been a couple different changes in like verbiage along the way of how you would describe it to get you over the years.
So that was one big thing. I remember that was kind of, okay, they're letting me play in that kind of environment. That's kind of interesting.
It's like you literally got your seat at the table to have that. And I'm sure now if anybody's opening up a restaurant, there's some sort of email or DM to you of saying, Stuart, would love to have you come by.
Sure. I mean, that does happen quite a lot. And the skip forward to today, and I hardly go to any of those things. Mm-hmm. Mainly because if there's somewhere I'm really interested in, I'd just rather sneak in there, pay my money. Yeah. I mean, it's a business now. I can afford to, do that and pay my money and just kind of look around, not while somebody's like, looking over my shoulder.
How do you like it? Is it going on?
Yeah. Can we get a write-up now? Because we gave you appetizer. That's cool.
That's not how that works.
No. Don't get me wrong. There are some places that open up and you're like, wow, I would love to go and check that out.
Yeah.
But very, very rarely these days. And then I think the second big thing for gastronomic is, so I'm trying to work out the timeline in my brain. For about 5 years there, I ended up becoming like one of the freelance restaurant critics for the Salt Lake Tribune.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like a 5-year period. And again, I'm scratching my brain from when that happened. And I didn't put gastronomic on the back burner per se, but it got a little less attention.
Yeah, even by nature, if you're focusing on two things instead of one thing, you can't focus as much time as you did on the first thing.
And but they called me up and said, hey, it was myself and Heather King. We need some new critics. Are you interested? I'm like, yeah, I'm interested.
That's how you am. These are what I read when I first got here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is now the words actually in print. This is like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah. And then, so I wanted to give that all the due respect it deserved. And we would go to restaurants 2, 3, sometimes more times to get, a multifaceted picture, because for the Tribune, it was very much give your honest opinion. No, if this is a bad restaurant, you've got to say it's a bad restaurant. Yeah. So you need to, before you crush somebody's dreams, make sure it really is a bad restaurant.
You got to be able to double down and be like, I said it was bad. Let me tell you why it was bad.
Let me go back one or two times and make sure, kind of thing. So, that was a big thing. Undoubtedly, that helped gastronomic. Yeah. Because, it's Tribune. I mean, it's huge.
One of the two biggest publications in Utah that most people see. So it's nice to be able to have that validation, be like, hey, you can now write the things that you were writing or that you were reading when you first moved here to get, insight, understanding, and kind of get that foundation. And now, I'm sure there's someone who could probably say the same thing about to that point, like Kendall, who she's like, oh, I moved here and I don't know, she's alone. Her husband's still at the other side of the world. And she's like, I just want to find good food. So she finds your blog. And then now she obviously does Queen of SLC and her own influencing and helping people do the same thing. Because that's one thing that she loves about her audience is there's so much of them that are people that are moving here, who are curious about here. So they fall and be like, okay, well, it's restaurants, what's life like? And so it's interesting how that's become so much more of the mainstream way to get information on something rather than, I guess I would say traditional ways, but then I wouldn't know kind of what I would have done at the same time.
I'd be really fascinated to know how it looks in 10 years, 20 years. People say to me, hey, Stuart, what about influencers? I'm like, awesome. Yeah. I don't really do much social media. I do a little bit because you got to be on the platforms and, you can show your own news. But there are people killing it on TikTok and killing it on Instagram and these different new kind of ways of communicating and telling people about restaurants. But I wonder what the next 5, 10, 15, what's the sum total this last 30 years of digital, moving away from print and radio and TV? Where does it end up? And I don't know.
People are going to have their Apple Vision Pros on, and they're going to be sitting across from you as you walk them through what they're about to eat and have their menu. And
I know where we are today isn't the final version.
No.
And the one in 5 years won't be. And that's actually really fascinating to me.
Well, that's something I love about food and the food experience is that is one of the few things that has always existed. We can't exist without food. Food's always been this experience to bring people together, provide comforts. There's an emotional aspect to eating that we all have. Yeah. And so it's interesting to think of the future. Even with try not to sound too cliche, but AI and everything going on, there are things that aren't going to exist. But
well, I think it will. So, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, what I was going to say is like with food, we're always going to eat, and we're always going to have this experience and want to share it. But it's like, to your point, what does that sharing or documenting look like?
Well, I mean, to the AI thing, I think AI is going to kill so much of it. And people have like poo-pooed it. No, it'll never be able to do the emotional side. It'll never be able to do the subjective and I'm like, well, I don't know. As like a computer science guy, I'm like,
are you guys see what I'm saying?
Like, in quotes, feed it enough data. I mean, you're kind of a data guy, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's
well, then you see Google buying rights to Reddit data so we can download that to see what Elon Musk has been doing with Tesla since the beginning with his machine learning models and how that's gone.
You feed it enough information from Yelp, from a constant Instagram feed of rich visual data. You like pair that up with the contextual data from, like the Tribune or New York Times or Reddit or wherever. And slowly but surely, I think enough kind of like data points, you could. I mean, at least like news, the news side of it.
Oh, for sure.
You make it redundant.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe in 15 years, 20 years, you also have the review side of it. I mean...
Yeah, just open. You don't have to do anything besides open a restaurant and there's already going to be reviews on how it's going to be.
It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
But I think people are going to be shocked by how quickly it moves.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot going on and it just keeps... It's like... So the thought I always come back to and stuff like this is you look at the timeline of, let's just zoom in on human experience. And let's say that's been happening for a couple 100,000 years, maybe a couple million years. So zoom even more to like the Common Era, like we're currently in year 2024 of that. Only like the past 200 years post-industrial revolution is how we've gotten here. And like there's a lot of good things that have happened. From like the microphones we're talking into to the electricity, like all of these things are so great.
What's the delta between like the Wright brothers and landing on the moon?
Exactly.
It's like 6 weeks or something. It's like so quick.
And especially when you look at the grand scheme, it's so fast. And so we've already seen this exponential growth. And then like to layer on exponential growth.
I mean, you're almost like logarithmic.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And like one thing I always have, and this is probably way more tangential, but like going into the conversation of like, is this a simulation? And there's always someone who's like, well, we don't have the computing power to have a simulation. I guess like, yeah, based on the assumptions we have now, which would be inside of it. Which we would be able to understand if they wanted to keep us in the simulation.
But if we run a simulation, all my meals would be fantastic, surely. Or maybe that's part of the simulation. Double bluff. Got to have bad meals. I don't know.
It always ribbons on top of itself to the point where at the end of the day, it all comes down to the best way to go about it is to go along with it.
Yeah.
So it's so fun to hear about how like that's changed so much. But I mean, from the Salt Lake that you walked into long ago, started the blog to now, what do you say are the biggest changes in Salt Lake's food scene maturing?
When I started, when you had like a really good restaurant or a really good kind of like atmosphere, menu, whatever, whichever way you want to phrase it, people would say, it's not like you're in Salt Lake, it's like you're in a real city. People don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
That you don't really hear that phrase as much as you used to. Because I think a lot of like the great restaurants we have would do just as well in Austin, in Portland, in these good food cities. I mean, we're never going to be a San Francisco or a New Orleans or Chicago. It's just demographics, just not big enough. Mm-hmm. But we do have some excellent chefs, excellent products, excellent restaurants, and they would do crazy well in big cities.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Because I think that's been one thing that I've learned too. Because again, like when I moved back, I moved from Seattle, which is a very big restaurant city. And that's probably where, because again, so my cousin is living down in just like south of Portland. He'd come up there, I'd go down there. He was like honestly who showed me like what it's like to have like what I like to call like quote like an adult night out where you go and you get a drink and then you go to the restaurant and if you don't have a reservation, you put a reservation in and then you go get an appetizer somewhere and you come back and then you go get another drink and then you go find a place for dessert.
And the places are open after 9 o'clock.
Crazy concept. And so that's like when I first realized like, oh, like it's this experience and this social gathering on top of everything instead of like growing up in Utah and like a lot of the culture is we are here to get food, we are sitting down, food will be brought out promptly, we will eat, we will get our check and we are out.
Sure.
Instead of how's life? It's like more social moment and being able to bond and do that. And it's funny because like, so I come here from Seattle where again, great food, great restaurants, finally started to have like an opinion on things instead of just being like, it's good, it's bad. And there were places I went, White Horse wasn't here when I left, and like that was a good like trending in a good direction. I mean, that was when Vultures was first starting to come up, and I'm trying to think of like the other places I went to a lot. But it's funny now comparing to even that, like just 5 years ago to now, where we're seeing, I mean, places like Mateo start to show up. We see like Manoli's, but then like we also stay true to ourselves, and we still kind of keep these like chain restaurants going. Like, not say it's like a bad thing or a good thing; it's just a thing. But
I've got no ill will against chain restaurants. I mean, we've talked about McDonald's. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. Like it's gonna be a part of it. It's not like I can like turn my nose up at it and be like, I'm never going to Cheesecake Factory, or I'm not doing this. Like, even the other day, I went to Houston Hot Chicken for the first time because I like love chicken fingers. Like,
how was it?
It was great because I was talking to Amber about it on the podcast. I was like, "What's your favorite fried chicken place?" She's like, "Houston Hot Chicken." Because I always kind of wrote it off as like,
oh yeah, and you said, right, I'm going there right after this podcast.
And there's a little bit of a delay, but I went on Saturday and I was like, oh, I get it that because like it's not fried now. This chicken is so much more moist, and you don't have to rely on the breading, and the breading is like and the sauce complements it really well. And they have these crinkle fries that almost have like a sugar on them instead of a salt. And so it was like a very unique experience with quality ingredients prepared in a great way that you don't lose all of that goodness. And so I was like, touche, Amber, yes, I'm on board. And so, I mean, that's a fun episode where she goes kind of through all of her favorite things. And so far, she's been very right. But it's also hard because it's a lot in like, I mean,
she knows her stuff.
Oh, she's tried everything. And so, but it's hard because like a lot of it's in Utah County, and I just don't go to Utah County.
You know, admittedly, I'm the same. When I first moved to Utah, I lived in Sugar House, and I've only moved slightly further south. And when I lived in Sugar House, like it was that kind of, I will never go further south than,
of course,
I don't know, 27th.
Yeah.
And then we moved, okay, I'll never go further south than 45th. And it creeps, but like kind of, when you get to South Jordan and kind of Draper, it becomes a little more fuzzy. Because one of the weird facts about me is I don't drive.
Oh, interesting.
Which freaks Americans out. Like, what do you mean you don't drive? Like, you suspended license or... No, I just never learned to drive my entire life. Yeah, so you start to get like that far out, and it becomes a little more challenging.
Yes.
Like I once took a lift to Riverton, and that was like $100 or something. I mean, it's like, yeah. I mean, my wife or friends will drive those places, but the further south we go on north, it gets a little fuzzier to me. Like I know what's going on, but don't really go there too much. Like was it like 4 months ago? Me and a friend went to like Orem. Oh, we got to check out a couple of these places. I think we went to like 7 places in like a few hours. Yeah. Like got the cooler in the back of his car, and like every time we went to a restaurant, ate half of it, put in the cooler, then keep from that, and like just absolutely killed it for like hours. Just restaurant.
It's amazing.
So, but I quite often do that.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go to Park City and eat all day long.
Yeah.
Kind of. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things that in I think because I'd be the person who would show up at the first restaurant and I would eat like a normal serving and be like, you're not going to do well today. And the next thing I know, I'm like crying because I'm so full and ate too much at the first place. Didn't appreciate the last one. But yeah, because I have the same, because I mean, my day job's in Lehigh, but I go down there maybe once or twice a month. And it's hard for me to find like a real reason. I mean, I guess to be fair, I did go this past Saturday because I went with my friend who's been on the podcast, John Darley, who's an artist, and someone, actually his episode releases on Friday, Micah Christensen. He's writing a book currently on this Spanish artist, Joaquin Sorolla. And so as part of that, he was able to get like 4 of his like most prominent works at the BYU Museum of Art.
Oh, cool.
And so I was like, I want to go check, because he was talking about it so well, and he's such a good like storyteller. I'm like, I gotta go check this out. And so I went with someone who knew art, and that was fun. But I did my like quarterly or biannually trip to Provo, got my fried chicken, and got out promptly. but yeah, I mean, it's also interesting to see to that point of like Amber finding things in Utah County, and I'm sure there's some sort of equivalent like on the northern side of things, because it is starting to spread more. And I think that historically Utahns, especially Salt Lake citizens, have been very frugal about food, because it's been, up until the past like 5 years, it's been always, the majority have always been LDS, the majority have been family raising families, and so that priority starts to remain true. Thinking about my meals I had growing up, it was either we went to Charlie Chow's when it used to be in Charlie Square, or we went to Spaghetti Factory again in Charlie Square. We went to Charlie Square a lot. And
Chuckarama?
Not as much. That was like, my grandparents loved Chuckarama. I remember the first time I went to Chuckarama, I actually threw a fit. I was thinking like 6 or 7.
I mean, I've been taken there on many extended family gatherings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so this kid who's like mad because I'm not going to. I probably wanted to go to McDonald's or something, and then I get there like, oh, this roll's really good with the honey butter. We got apple beer on tap. Like, and then cut this prime rib. I was like, okay, like it was like a dream come true for me then. But
Cool.
I'm trying to think what else there was, but like, this is pretty much it. We cooked a lot at home. Parents were both working a lot, and so it just kind of became. Yeah, I'm trying to think how often. Anyway, it's so long ago I can't even remember how often we would go, but but again, it was because it's like a pretty easy place we could go to, but it's not going to be expensive. It's not like we're trying to go like find really good food. And to now, again, like the population has changed so much where now, I mean, the LDS population isn't more than 50% of Salt Lake. You have a lot of people moving from outside of the state. A lot of people are bringing money with them. A lot of people are buying houses and setting up shop. And so now they do have more money to spend on food. And it's been fun. And I'm curious, like your perspective on it, but I feel like there has been a large shift in that perspective of like kind of food and what people want and why people want it.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely correct on the change in demographics. When you look at like what you mentioned about Seattle, like when you go out to a restaurant like an HSL or Copper Common, like a place where you can just kind of hang out and have a glass of wine and a snack at the bar and head on somewhere else. And that kind of, you just have not eat kind of thing. So much more of those open up all the time at a much more rapid pace every 5 years. I think that's a lot more of those kind of style businesses. Yeah,
less like, for lack of a better example, like the Zupas and the kind of fast casual, which have their place. Like, don't get me wrong. Like,
I was trying to think of what the counter to that was and was fun, but you're right, kind of more the fast casual thing.
Yeah, that fast casual thing, which don't get me wrong, like I'll swing by Zupa's, Chipotle. I mean, there's always a place for it, but I think it's been interesting to see how there's been this like growth of like, oh, no, we want good food. We want to go, to Manoli's, we want to go to Mateo, we want to go to Takashi, and like we truly have like this good experience. And then you see these places open up even more. Like the one that's come up to me recently that actually Amber brought up is like the Post District, where they have like Urban Hill, and they have like, and just so many like things, to your point, like the growth in these places isn't just like, there's a new one. It's like, there's 2, and then there's 3, and then there's 4. And again, it's like so much more of this experience, like such great spaces. And then we're also like attracting some of these, like, I want to say like more prominent chain, like STK, for example.
I was going to mention those guys.
Yeah.
Again, I don't have any problems with chains, and especially the higher end.
Oh yeah, we'll take those all day.
Like, it brings so much more, I think, like attention. And attention brings people, and people brings talent, and talent. It's just a virtuous circle, right? I mean, STK wouldn't have opened here if they didn't think they could make the money they need to make per square foot.
Exactly.
And they're a big operation, right?
Yeah.
So, and they bring like all that talent with them. And eventually, every restaurant, people move on and do things. So it keeps this pot bubbling and simmering, and it gets better and better. And I love it.
I know I was going to say, it's kind of like a bigger picture of what you're talking about, where like if you can highlight a good restaurant that you like and people read the blog and they go see it and then they get more people to it, it's the same way. Whereas if we can get good food here and people go and support that, and then those people get inspired to start their own restaurants, or someone else wants to bring in another concept to here. And I think it's only up from here, and seeing what's to come. Like I think Mateo hit it on the head when I talked to him. It's like you see, Ninth South is a great example. You're starting to just become this restaurant row all the way from the Whale, where you have Tsunami starting, all the way through 9th and 9th, all the way through,
like those Central 9th,
all the way to Central 9th, where you can go get a breakfast. Like there's so many good things. Like maybe I'll do that for like a month, just only eat on places that are on 9th South. Because you could do, it wouldn't even be hard.
No, I'm saying that's not how challenging.
Yeah, because you could have, there's so many dessert places. Like, there's a pie fight right there. There's the spilled milk, and then you can go down to there's Chubby Baker. All right, I take it back. I wouldn't even be hard. I'd just be enjoying myself.
Just be indulging yourself.
You're Manoli's again. I know. Why wouldn't I be? But yeah, what? When you're going out, or what are some of your go-to places, or what do you look for in restaurants when you want to go off the clock and enjoy on your own? Weirdly,
I'm like one of the worst people to ask. Because, going back to the Tribune era, when I used to write the Tribune, that was always what's new. So we'd always, taking turns to review a new restaurant and then move on to the next one. And these days it's kind of the same, but now it's like I'm trying to spread more information on hey, this cool event's happening, or this chef changed here, or this restaurant's closed. So it's more news-based. But when I do write about restaurants, again, it's trying to do this new thing. So, like, tomorrow I might go check a brand new restaurant, and it might not be the restaurant that I personally want to go to. And I might not write about it because it might not be that good.
Right.
And I'm sure you hear that a lot, like, Amber probably said that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I've had a great experience.
Like, you're not going to be like, you're never going to guess how much I hate this place.
Yeah.
It's just not worth putting, like, you don't want to damage someone just because, like, you had a bad experience.
Exactly. When I was at the Tribune, that was the job. That was the role. Tell me what you thought of this, and here's the money to do the job. Great. No, I'm just trying to tell people through Gastronomic, here's what's happening on the food scene, and it's interesting and notable. So when I do go out, it's always trying to find that story of what's new and notable, interesting. And it's only when my wife says, hey, do you want to go on a date tonight? Can we go to one of our favourite spots?
Got it, yeah.
So I do have some favourite spots, but most of the time when I'm going out, it's like, oh my God, they just changed the menu at this place. I better go and check it out.
Yeah.
Coyote just opened in Marmite. I gotta check that out. Yeah. And by the time you've like looked around, you're like, I haven't been to like my favorite restaurant for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Which I don't know is, again, I'm not an old person. Is that how often people go out? Like once every 6 months? I don't know. Like, I feel like people go out more than once every 6 months.
That's a fair assumption. I definitely go out more than once every 6 months.
Okay. But for me, it's like, yeah, let's do our favorite place tonight.
Yeah.
But so many months will have passed since we did that.
Because you can only have...
I'm not complaining. It's just, I'm a weird example.
You're the anomaly of it all.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, to your point, it's like, okay, let's say you have 3 meals a day, that's 21 meals a week. But if you have to have 7 of those be something that you're chasing or hearing a story about or wanting to go check out, I mean, that's already gone, so you can't do that. And then lunch, there's only so many... Like, I just see how it could whittle down because you're not like a...
And you get burnt out. You don't... I mean, you could eat out every night.
But, yeah...
But you quickly, I can tell you from experience, you get really, really bored of that really quickly.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Can I eat a vegetable at home that's green and hasn't been deep fried? Can we do that?
Just have something simple instead of like, I think it would lose its luster pretty quick. Because I feel like people are always like, oh, I want to like, I mean, it's like the things that people always, I call it like sometimes like the Anthony Bourdain effect. But if you were to go to people and be like, hey, like, if you could have your perfect life, would it be like, oh, traveling the world with celebrities eating the best food, like every night? Like, and he obviously... his story didn't end in the best way.
Sure.
And so people are like, oh, if you eat out every meal, you get to go to all these places. Isn't that amazing? Don't you love it? You're like, it has its point, and then it reaches a point, and then to your point, like, I just want to go have a vegetable at home that isn't...
And I'm also the worst dining companion as well. Because somebody will put a plate of food in front of me, and I'll be like, right, now what have they done here? And you're turning things over and inspecting it, and my wife's like, can we just have like a normal day night and eat the food and not like...
You're like, 1 second.
Let me get my camera out and take a picture, and take a picture of the menu, and look around the dining rooms, everybody had, like, it just kicks in.
Yeah.
Like this kind of...
It's probably just like this neat
analytical mode.
Yeah, you probably can't even turn it off if you wanted to.
No,
there's food in front of me, I'm going to analyze it.
Yeah.
I'm in a restaurant, so I'm going to think about it. And then I'm sure there's something, maybe I won't write about it.
I just got back from a trip to the UK and stayed with some friends, and they were terrified of cooking dinner at home. I'm like, guys, no, it's fine. Just make it like, no, we're not making dinner for you.
I'm not going to do something. Like, come on. It's got to be... Yeah, I mean, I would
see some of the mess that I cook for myself at home. Do not worry about it.
Yeah, that'll humble them a little bit more. But yeah, no, because like, I mean, and to your point, I mean, that's part of like the entire... Well, not the entire, but like a lot of the blog is to help highlight new things that are happening and excitement there. And I know you talked about like Coyote. And I mean, any other ones that you feel like are on the up and coming or anything that people should check out? I would definitely put Coyote right now at the top of the list. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're on social media, you see all the... Yeah. Those guys are just killing it right now. And there's lines at the door, lines inside. They can't keep up because it's like every other day there's a post like we ran out of food. Friday. The brisket that they cook there, it's like the best brisket in Utah, in my opinion. It beats any barbecue shop in Utah, hands down. Interesting. And I'm trying to find really good barbecue in Utah. It is really, really good. I mean, they cook it in like 60 hours. Yeah. And then they finish it in like beef tallow and all this stuff. And not to plug myself constantly, the stories on the website. But those, so they're just, the chicken wings the best in town. The ramen is just top tier. Do you know Brandon Furking? Yeah. On Instagram? I think he summed it up saying they like moved the needle 10 years. Yes. Overnight. Yes. And they really did. It's just one spoonful, you're like, oh, I see. Like, I get this. Right. Now. This isn't that. This is something else. And then especially just like, I mean, the whole experience together. Because, I mean, again, you can go to, I mean, insert any good ramen place in Salt Lake, and I can probably walk you through that experience. But you're like, oh, I feel like I'm actually in like a ramen house in Japan, the way everything is served and the way it's rolled out and the efficiency behind it and ordering, which is, part of, a significant portion of like the dining experience is the experience itself.
I was talking to Hiro, the chef there. Hiro, I'm not sure on the pronunciation. And he told me, like, in Japan, you're meant to eat a bowl of ramen in 5 minutes. I'm like, wow. He's like, yeah, you want to eat it really, really fast. Because the longer the noodles obviously sit in that hot broth, they kind of get gummy and mushy. It's like, we're not really trying to do it to that extreme level, because this is just not the American way of dining, right?
Right.
But it's not set up. Have you been? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's not set up to like linger there for 3 hours, right?
No.
They want you to come in, enjoy your meal, have a beer, and hey, let's the next table come in. And not rushed, but they want to turn those tables. It's not a food that sits.
Exactly.
So.
And it does move, because I remember the first time I went, it was kind of like a last minute decision. And I walked up, and again, to your point, there's like 30 people in line. I'm like, shit, I'm not getting in here. But then I was waiting for the person I was meeting up with to show up, and I was like, I still have to meet her here regardless. Let's see how. And like 20 minutes later, I'm like second person in line. Because,
that's not too bad.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's so fun because it's like that is part of that experience. And like I always love, like, one thing I hate about American culture of eating is like, maybe not American, but definitely Utah, because it's more popular in New York and bigger cities, of like going out to dinner by yourself. And just being able to have an experience, eat food, not have to worry about talking to anybody, and get out. Like, I love that. Just being able
Me too. I do it all the time.
Yeah, like you just go sit, enjoy yourself. There's not like this awkward conversation. You have to keep, not saying everybody you go to have a meal with there's an awkward conversation, but there's just not this.
But it's fun to enjoy your own self, right?
Exactly.
And like, you can go to the restaurant, you sit at the bar, you can order 6 appetizers. Yeah. You don't have to say to like your partner, hey, is it okay if I...
Yes.
Like, it's just, you ask yourself, is it okay? Yes, it's okay.
Yes, it is. We ordered the 6 appetizers, and we will get another beer, and then we will do this entree. Dessert sounds great. And for example, I live right now pretty close, like Nomad East.
Okay.
And so more often than not, if I'm alone, just want Nomad, but I'm like, I don't really want to, just feeling like a little misanthropic, whatever, just don't be around people. Like, I will go up. I know there's always going to be a seat at the bar. I know exactly what pizza I want to get. I know what wine I'm going to order. I know what salad I'm going to get. And it's just kind of this nice experience. Sometimes I'll put my phone up and watch something as I eat. Sometimes I won't. But there's always someone will always give me a weird look of like, why are you alone? They're like,
do you think that is see, I don't know. I've traveled around the States a lot for my real job. Do you feel like that? But I don't really know. Is it a Utah thing? Is it an American thing? Is it that kind of, oh, I feel so sorry for him?
I think, like the place I know that people do that the most, and it's not as weird, as like New York. Right. But that's just kind of part of the culture of just, you don't really eat that many meals at home, and you're not going to be with everybody all the time. Sure. So I think that's a portion of it. But I'm trying to think of like experiences in, other major cities, like Seattle, LA, San Francisco, and others. And I really don't feel like I see that as much. Okay. Except you might see a couple of people at the bar sitting alone, which is like one thing, but to the point of like Coyote, where it's like the whole bar seating is here's your number, you order for yourself. Here's your number, you order for yourself. And really kind of like embracing that part of like, the typical Japanese ramen house. It
seems so natural to me. Like next week, I'm going to this like, do you know Silent Cider in Central North?
Yeah.
They're doing this really cool pop-up with this chef, Daniel Mullins, called Cactus Eater. The menu looks amazing. It's like Central Mexican menu. My wife said, Stuart. And I said, you're probably not interested in going to this, because it's all like, juniper duck taco or the pork belly, and it's very meaty. She's like, you go yourself. Yeah. And I'm quite happy. I'll sit at the bar, eat the food. So it seems really natural to me.
Yeah.
I find it odd that people couldn't enjoy their own company for 2 hours.
No, I'm with you.
Each their own, I guess.
I'm team you versus team not you. Because, we still enjoy the food, but not have to worry about the other stuff. You can be more like so much more immersed in it because there's nothing else like distracting you.
Yeah, it seems to go like in like 10 seconds to me.
I'm sure she's had enough of these experiences. Like, you can go.
Please
fine.
go. Please go.
I'm going to sit here and watch my show. I'm going to go with friends.
Pretty much.
Do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm
sure you can go and hyper-analyze and assess it, and I'll watch Real Housewives.
Yes. Everybody wins.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she still does love good food and loves joining what it does, but every time is probably
like going back to your question for that and links into that, like Cobb Common. That's one of our favorite places to hang out. It's nice and intimate. It's grown up. I remember when it opened up, that was a place that people used to say, "Oh, it feels like one home." Not as like anymore. This was right?
I said they've been there a while now.
Yeah, did they just celebrate 10 years, I think?
Yeah.
Just a couple of days ago or a couple of days in the future. It's going to be 10 years.
Interesting.
And like Ryan Leider, who's the owner there.
Okay.
He used to be a chef in New York, and my take was always his little slice of his New York memory. Like you walk around, you look at kind of like, the art on the wall and the design and just the way the menu is. It feels
New York.
That kind of, little slice of where it used to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good description, especially when you go into Copper Commons, like the bar. You're like, this doesn't feel like a Salt Lake City bar. It just feels a little bit more elevated.
And back to before I beat up my own argument from earlier, there are many, many more places like that now. So it's it's not like it's just like there's Post Office Place or Barnum or The Pearl. There's lots of places kind of that, small plates have bars.
Yeah. And they're only getting, it's funny because they get received so well.
Yeah.
Like the amount of people that rave about the Pearl, the amount of people that rave about Post Office Place, the amount of people that rave about Nome. Like, it's so fun to see people value or see things for that they actually are. And again, go to them so they don't go out of business.
Yeah. I always send, when people come from out of state, like, show me the best of what, you guys have. I'm here for one night. I always tell people to go to the Central Ninth.
Yeah.
Because naturally people think, I'm going to go downtown, right?
Right.
No, let me lay you a little secret. Go to Central Ninth and you can stop at Scion.
Yeah, go to Water Wedge.
Second biggest selection of cider in the US.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
That blows people's minds.
I'll be honest, because I'd seen the sign a couple times and I didn't realize where it was or what it was until I went to Central Ninth on Sunday to get a breakfast sandwich. And I was like, oh, this is where it is. So that's funny. You're like, oh, do you know where it's time? I was like, yes, I do. Okay. I know exactly where it is now.
And they just started opening on Monday nights.
Perfect.
Which, Central Ninth, they have the smash burger night.
Yeah.
And everybody goes around the corner and totally rams out Waterwich until there's nowhere to sit. Well, now you can go to Scion.
There's overflow at Scion and go around there.
But that whole block, let's walk around it in my brain. You got Scion, Laziz, Central Ninth, Waterwich, Barnum. You got the coffee guys in Copper.
Yep.
Then in the corner, you got the Pearl.
Yeah.
Across the road is the pizza place, Snowmobile.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Golden Eurozone just across the road. But coming back up on the crossroad from Central Ninth, that's going to be Hoppers. They're going to be reopening they used to be in Midvale.
Oh,
where the Raising Cane's is now.
Yep.
On the corner. They're reopening on that corner, just across from Central Ninth.
Okay.
So that place, give that another 18 months, and it's going to be really, really hopping.
See, that's because it almost reminds me of the feeling of, I don't know if you've ever been Capitol Hill in Seattle, where it's a little grungier than downtown Seattle. It's almost like that. Because with Salt Lake, there's predominant culture and there's a big counterculture. And with Seattle, there's, because again, the capital of grunge, there's still that grungy part, but it's all in Capitol Hill.
Where does I know how it happens in Utah, but where does the counterculture come from?
I would say just I don't know. That's a good question. Because I feel like a lot of the normal culture comes from, the economy. You have so many huge, large corporate companies that a lot of people come and work for, and just, let's call it corporate America. And then you have these people who, working class servers, they kind of all hang around that area. But I don't know necessarily the reason for it, though. It's a good question.
Because there's normally something that spurs that kind of flip side to the culture, right?
Interesting. I need to do some thinking and some research.
Oh, okay.
But then again, when you go up to Capitol Hill in Seattle, it's here's this these great restaurants, these new great bars and everything, but you don't really know unless you know and go experience it to know it's there and truly appreciate it, because it's not the places that shove in your face, have this huge marketing budget, but it's quality, good experience, good menu. I
got back from Austin last summer, and I did a little research, and the first place I went to, it's what I do. I started chatting to the bartender because sat at the counter, and he's like, "Oh, okay, you like food, you like drink," and he pulls a thing from behind the bar. Here's a little card with all the restaurants and bars we like in town, and that's what we did for the rest of the week, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
it's all the Copper Commons and all the Barnums, and you might not find them on the Eaters, on the Yelps,
but we'll tell you where to go.
Yeah, it was cool.
I always appreciate those. People are "Oh, here's where I go," or here's where I would recommend. Because again, you can go through countless websites, apps, whatever, and try to do that. But at the end of the day, there's always some sort of persuasion and bias in it.
Yeah, and I'm, the data analysis side of it, I was trying to pull in so much information to try and weed out. Hang on, now these guys are saying this is good, and these are but this as it isn't, and this seems more authentic. Like you try and get this massive dead set, but then when a local tells you, no, this is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, then, we're sold.
Yeah, we'll take this out. Perfect.
Yeah.
We got our list and we're going to go. So I mean, besides, web hosting and eating your fair share of food, I mean, what else do you like to do around Salt Lake and Utah?
Oh man, I don't know if this is really embarrassing, if there is anything else.
It is what it is, and thankfully you're keeping more than busy enough with food and drink.
It's a lot of work. I mean, the full-time job, the second job. Like travel when I can. Yeah. But then that just turns into working
more food, more refining the palate.
Where are your favorite places in town?
My favorite places, I mean, it's hard. So I spend a lot of time at Edison. I will be honest and say I'm getting sick of the menu because when you eat here enough, no matter how good it is,
sure,
you get sick of it. But I mean, my go-to place, like I love Takashi and like Sapa are always going to be my favorite like sushi places. I love Takashi because I also love Post Office Place just as much.
Gotcha.
So it's like, I mean, people always complain, they go to Takashi and there's like a 45-minute wait, but I'm like, cool, name's still down. I'm going next door. I'm going to go get some Japanese whiskey and some small plates and I'll see you in 45 minutes and I'm not going to be bummed out at all. I mean, one that's been recent, kind of your mention of Copper Commons is like hot buns. So if I ever go out, sorry McDonald's, but I will go to Copper Commons. I mean,
it's not hard to beat McDonald's, right? I mean,
no.
It has a soft spot.
Oh, it's more nostalgia and pattern and history, but like hot buns is fun just because I mean, if you've gone out, you're probably like still a little drunk and if you go there, you order on your phone and there's people walking up to go to like Franklin and they don't really like every time I'm there's people walking and talking about the night, but they don't realize we're sitting there waiting for food. So it's like, oh, did you hear that? Like, yeah, we heard it. We don't know who you are.
That's one of my favorite little strips in town.
Oh, it's such a fun place.
Because let's think of the road, you have like Beer Bar X.
Yeah, Beer Bar X running on second.
And then come
Este Pizza. Yeah. And then you come down and what is it now?
There's Lazee's.
Yeah, because it's Lazee's now.
And they have a little cocktail bar at the back door.
Yep.
And then you're down to like Franklin, and I haven't been in the new place opposite Franklin.
Oh, the Mayor Voss?
Mayor Voss.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Okay. Well, Franklin's one of my favorites.
Oh, Franklin's is amazing, and that space is so beautiful too. Yeah. And like what was the brunch and coffee place that used to be at Mayor Voss?
Oh, it was Campos.
Yeah, Campos was so fun, and I love that. Like, it's such a hard space, but like a place to really thrive, just because it's pretty big. The kitchen isn't that big. They do have a big bar, and they have like a small. Anyway, it's like a hard space to make it work for you. Like, oh, you're gonna be a bar, you're gonna be a restaurant.
Sure.
Either way, it's a difficult one to navigate. But yeah, then you just keep going. Like it's almost like, because like before, I feel like in Salt Lake, especially with like, I mean, nightlife and going out, it's like, okay, so you're gonna go like second on second, or you're gonna go on like Main Street, or you're gonna go like on this like tiny little strip on State Street. Where now it's like, you mean, just thinking about that talk track you just mentioned, like going from Beer Bar X, Johnny's on second, I say go down towards Franklin and I almost said Taco.
Like Copper Commons on the edge, and then Rock Taco's in the middle.
Yeah, Rock Taco, and then you go over, and then you're going to have Sayonara on your left, and like it's just so much more easy to like bar hop than being like
crazy busy like Maine.
No,
like you go on Main Street and go to some of the restaurants, and they're like, an hour wait, 90-minute wait. And again, congratulations, they're doing fantastic business.
For sure,
great for them. But I'm hungry.
It's something to eat. And I think there's a lot more options because if you like the few Hallmark places everybody would go, but now it's. Like so many places have a kitchen, so many places have like some sort of like not just food, but like unique food. And like I think kind of the ones we've mentioned before are such a good example of that, of like the Pearl, of having this like Asian, especially like I think it's Filipino inspired because I don't know.
Oh, the Pearl?
Yeah, the Pearl.
The Vietnamese.
Vietnamese inspired like infusion cuisine on top of that. And I mean, Sayonara is a good one, another like Japanese themed kind of like supposed to be feel like a street bar in Japan and Tokyo. Right. And so I feel like we're having so much more nuance to it than just like, oh, here's a bar.
No, you're totally right. This year's looking really exciting too. I mean, Ryan Loder, who mentioned, he's opening a new place in like the Maven. Is it the Maven building next to Doe Miner? Is that what they call that? The Granary District.
Yeah, Granary District.
I
don't know where like Post District, Granary District, Maven District, Central Night. Like I think they're all trying to fight for like the title, but no clear winner yet.
But he has like a place coming, which he's consulting with this like James Beard award-winning guy in New York. Zach Palaccio, I think his name was. But he literally won a James Beard in New York for his restaurants and was named one of the most influential chefs in like last 20 years. And he's consulted on this thing in Salt Lake with Ryan, and looks really cool. I mean, just more like, to your point, more interesting concepts. All I've been told is going to be spaghetti western in quotes. I don't know what that means.
As long as it's not spaghetti in a bucket.
It might be a very fancy bucket. No, I don't know. But just the names involved, you know, it's just going to be from the guys behind Copper and Copper Onion, this guy out of New York. You just know it's going to be really good.
Yeah.
Before it even opens.
It's nice to be like confident in it. Because like, but then there's like restaurants you hear will open up and you're kind of like, see how it goes. And there's been enough stories where it's like the restaurants that will post it like, hey, we're opening. And then you're like, oh, they never did. Oh, it's like too bad. Like, but I think those are happening less and less. And again, we're getting a lot more recognizable people, a lot more accolades behind them.
Yeah.
And I think it's going super well. And even on top of that, we have these, chefs that have kind of, what's her name? The founder of Sapa and Purgatory.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Yeah, her, just like seeing how like someone will have one good concept and then they'll just like use it as this like launch pad towards other things.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fun to not only have these external people come in that are validated and have all the accolade and like deserve it all, but then having seen people also grow their own brands and their own kind of like names here in Salt Lake themselves. So I like that we kind of have these both experiences, because like we don't just want to have people come in and be like, oh, well, we can't grow anything from within. But then, I feel like it's like a healthy balance of the two.
Yeah, and going back to one of the things earlier, I like how the city can support so many more interesting different things. I mean, you mentioned Urban Hill. Mm-hmm. Have you been into Urban Hill?
No, I need to.
It's so good. I mean, they've spent an absolute stupid amount of money. I mean,
you walk by it and you know that it's... Yeah, there's a good...
And they hired this design company out of Colorado. Semper something, I can't remember the name, but I think initially they were like, nah, we're not coming to Salt Lake. So that means they were like, no, you're really coming here some money. Yeah. And the place is beautiful, the staff is so well drilled. I'm one of those, can you swear? I'm one of those assholes that
of course.
Throws my server a random question just to see.
Yeah. Do
you know, this dish? And I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just trying to gauge the level of, and I've not once, kind of foxed anybody. Is this a preserved lemon? Well, yes, it is. I picked it yesterday. It came from,
Yeah. Tell me where was this?
It's like that
episode
episode of Portlandia. Yeah. Where's the chicken from? And they go find chicken and they know his name. But the staff is so good and the ingredients are great and the room's good and they spent so much money. And I don't know if that would have happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because are you going to spend millions of dollars and hope? So you're thinking about the solid demographic. They'll embrace this. It's like a 220-seat restaurant. Mm-hmm. I think that means, I'm not in the restaurant business, but I'm in the business, that you've got to fill a lot of those seats every night.
Yeah.
And it's not a cheap place. And they do. And they're doing great. And it's a fabulous restaurant. And I don't think we would have had that 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
So,
I had my Thanksgiving Day dinner there for the first time ever living in America.
Interesting.
And it was amazing. Huh. I never go out on big holidays because it's normally a bit of a crapshoot, right?
Right, totally.
All the people, kind of a buffet set up, and it was really, really good.
See, that's what excites me, because again, I want good food, I want good experiences, I want places where I can take friends and family and be able to sit down and have a great experience, because that's what food does. It brings people together. Yeah. It doesn't just satiate the hunger, but honestly the soul. And that's someone I'll die on the hill of one of my favorite things in the world is what my therapist calls tabling. Just having 4 to 6 people sitting around a table, probably with a bottle of wine in the middle. Good food makes it even better, but just talking and enjoying your time together. And that's, I think, one thing that Utah, especially Salt Lake, is starting to learn, that there's so much more beauty in that experience of coming together rather than, okay, we need to rush here and eat this and do this, and the pragmatic approach. Not saying it's wrong. I get it. Life is fast and you got to eat something.
All things for different occasions, right?
But also for that reason, it's good to slow down and savor the flavor.
Yeah.
So, Stuart, I want to wrap with 2 questions. First, if you could have someone on the Small Lake City podcast and hear their story, who do you want to hear from?
Yeah, I thought about this one, listening to all the podcasts, like I said, and if you can get him, I would recommend Craig Jerome.
Craig Jerome.
He currently runs kind of a pop-up business called Jerome's Market. He makes sausages.
Okay.
I first met Craig. He was a chef at, do you remember Annex in Sugar House?
Yes.
And then he went on to HSL. And he came up with Philip Grubisa, who's the guy that owns Valtex.
Got it.
They both started out at the Waldorf in Park City.
Yeah.
And they both took different paths. And it's kind of interesting to me that Craig has come back to butchery, like Philip has. And like his family come from the East Coast. They've had like a sausage shop back there since the 50s. And he's gone back to that direction, making all these sausages. And he sells them online and delivers to your door, and he has them at the farmer's market. And he's always been one of my favorite chefs ever since I tasted his food. Yeah. And I just think his story could be kind of really interesting. Like East Coast guy comes and chefs and makes sausage. It could be a story though. And he's really a super nice guy. Yeah.
I mean, especially a story that touches on so many, like, I don't want to say iconic Utah places, but like, I mean, HSL and Beltex alone and Waldorf up there.
You knew it was going to be a food thing for me, right?
Yeah, I would hope so. I need more food people. Well, I have a lot of food people, but it is fun to, like, it's fun now because like I'll follow, like, I mean, with like Amber and with, Kendall and people, they'll like post like, oh, like, should I go? They're like, yes, this is somewhere you should. Like, it's funny just to be able to like interact because like we're friends now. We've sat down and like had a conversation about it, and I'm excited. Yeah, would love to sit down with him and hear more about it.
Cool.
But and then if people want to follow you, the blog, and hear more about the up and coming fun places for them to go eat, what's the best place to find you?
GastronomicSLC.com. I wish I picked an easier name when I started. I don't really. I mean, I wanted a name. I wanted a name that would be more than go get food.
Yeah.
Eatfood.com. Like I wanted to have a little bit of a fancier cachet.
Yes.
Just to get the points across that, hey, we're here for good food, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Gastronomic. If you search for just SLC food news on Google, I'll come up there.
It's almost like it's SEO optimized to do so.
Almost like it is.
Yeah. Interesting.
But yeah, I'm from the give me your email address. I won't sell it to anybody. We can stay in touch. Subscribe button. Hit that like button.
Exactly. No, absolutely. No, it's great to sit down with you, Stuart, and hear a little bit more about your experience and a little bit more about, food in Salt Lake and how much optimism there is in the air. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and excited to see and read more about all the good things coming up.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Eric. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Salt Lake City Podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, review, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends. And we'll catch you next week. We'll see you there.